Hello and welcome to the presentation of AstroCamp 2024. My name is Carlos Martins. I'm the Scientific Director of the AstroCamp program. And in the next half an hour or so, I will explain to you what the program is about and what you have to do if you want to join it. So the AstroCamp is an academic excellence program in the fields of astronomy and physics, which is organized by us, the Center for Astrophysics of the University of Porto, in partnership with the Paredes do Coro municipality, and it's aimed at students in the last 3 years of pre-university education. The program includes a summer school. This year, this takes place from the 4th to the 18th of August at the Center for Environmental Education of the Cordon do Pico Protected Landscape in the Paredes do Coro municipality. Now, the main goal of the program is to promote scientific knowledge through high-quality academic training and mentorship. And by high quality, I essentially mean university level. Additionally, we want to stimulate student curiosity and broad skills such as critical thinking, teamwork, group responsibility, and also provide our students with networking opportunities and long-term support, including through individual mentorship, especially for those which have less access to them because they live in small places or for some other reason. Now, the AstroCamp program started already in 2012. So up to now, we've had 12 editions of this summer school. And here you have group photos of the participants in each of these 12 schools. And by way of summary of what happened up to now, I offer you the statistics in this slide. So in these 12 editions, 155 students participated in these summer schools. 129 of them have alumni status, and we've had students from Portugal and 14 other countries up to now. In the first 4 editions, only Portuguese students could participate, but then the camp became international. And in most recent editions, actually we had more foreign students being selected to participate than Portuguese students. It's also a regular trend that we had more girls than boys participating. And I should emphasize that we don't have any quotas for any of the numbers above. There's no quotas for Portuguese or foreign students or for boys and girls. Merit, potential, maturity are the only selection criteria. So the statistics you see merely reflect the number and the quality of the applicants that we get. Up to now, we accepted each year applications from students in any of the last 3 years before university, and the camp was, to a large extent, a standalone event. Although a good number of students started projects in this summer school, which they continued subsequently, and in some cases, this even led to peer-reviewed publications, so papers published in top-level international journals in astronomy and physics. Now, this year, we'll have a significant change in the structure of the program. Specifically, we're moving to a 3-year program. And this means 2 things, or if you want, we'll have 2 steps. So you can only apply to join the program in the antepenultimate year of school. So in Portugal, this means if you are in 10th grade. In other countries, it will mean slightly different things because other countries have different school systems. So you apply when you are in 10th grade. You enter the program by participating in this 2-week summer school, and that is the first step. The second step is that if you do well enough in the exams that you will have in this school, and if in our evaluation you also show sufficient maturity and professional behavior, then you'll be invited to remain in the program for the subsequent 2 years, which means all the way until you finish secondary school and enter university. And in these following 2 years, you'll have access to a number of continuing activities. So some of them will be done remotely, but some will be done in person, in the same place as the school or in Porto or in other places in other countries. So there'll be a range of activities, and you'll also have individual support, and you'll have an individual mentor assigned to you to optimize your learning of physics and astronomy, to help you decide the university that you want to join and so on. So these are the two steps of the new format of the program. So how do you join the program? For obvious reasons, the program is selective, and the entry point, as I said, is this summer school. So you can join following an application, which is also a two-step process. So first you submit an application. I will explain in more detail in a few minutes how this is done. And if you pass the first step, the second step of the selection process is an interview, which is always done in English. So even if you are a Portuguese student, you will be interviewed in English. Now, for students which are studying in Portuguese schools, this 2-week school has no costs. For students coming from other countries, you may have, or your parents may have to cover some of the expenses, but we do have some funding that we can use for foreign students. Or you also have the possibility of trying to find local support, so support from local sources, which may be your school, your municipality, or some other entities. Now, this applies to the school. The principles are more or less the same for the activities in the following 2 years. And that is something that we'll explain to students who enter the second stage of the program. So what happens in this summer school in August? Well, we'll have both scientific and non-scientific activities. Starting with the scientific ones, you'll have to take 2 courses. Each of the courses will have 21 hours of classes, 4 hours of written exams. You'll have a number of other broad research skill activities. You'll have some practical projects that you can start. You'll have stargazing sessions. You'll be able to chat online with various astronomers and physicists all over the world and at different stages of their careers. We'll watch some documentaries and do some other geeky things. And that's the science part. On the non-science part, you'll participate in some community service projects. They change a little bit from year to year. There's a cycle of public talks. We'll be in the mountains, so there's a lot of hiking, including an overnight hike, so you can see the Perseids meteor shower. And you'll have a number of other recreational activities, which also change a little bit from year to year. Additionally, we'll have some activities involving alumni of the camp, so students who participated in previous editions, and you'll also get a chance to meet the people who might be your future mentors if you stay in the program for the 2 subsequent years. Now, let me mention briefly one of these community service activities that we have in the AstroCamp, and this is what we call the solar system trail. If you try and build a simple model of the solar system, it's very easy to build one that is accurate in terms of sizes, but not scales, not distances, or the other way around. It's actually quite hard to do a model that is accurate both in terms of sizes and in terms of distances. Last time I checked, and this was only a couple of weeks ago, there's only 2 of them in the Iberian Peninsula and only a total of 16 all over Europe. We built one of them. So students in the AstroCamp designed the initial version of this scale model in the first 4 editions. Then in 2016, we built a more robust, more sophisticated version of it. And this was associated with a hiking trail, so you can hike around the mountains and come across the planets in the solar system at their appropriate places. And this solar system trail is now used in Portugal as a teaching resource for students in 7th grade. So I'm very proud of the fact that there's a whole generation of 7th grade students in Portugal that will learn the basics of the solar system thanks to the work and the effort of a good number of former AstroCamp students. Okay, so now I can tell you how you can join the AstroCamp program. So how you can apply to AstroCamp 2024. So first we need to clarify the eligibility criteria. So if you want to apply to the program, and you want to apply in these editions, you must cumulatively fulfill the following two requirements. So you must fulfill both of them. So first, in the current academic year, you must be matriculated in the antepenultimate year of pre-university education in any of the 45 countries listed on the slide. And second, you must be a national citizen of one of these 45 countries. So there's 35 countries in Europe, there are 6 countries in North and South America, and there's 4 countries in Asia and Oceania. So 45 countries in total. In Portugal, the antepenultimate year of pre-university education is, of course, the 10th grade, and this will almost always means that it's students born in the year 2008. But in other countries which have different educational systems, the details might vary slightly. The overall rule is antepenultimate year of pre-university education. And if you're in doubt, you can always contact us and try and clarify that. Now, I'll tell you in a moment how you can clarify that by contacting us. So what is the structure of the summer school this year? Well, the dates are August 4 to 18, as I already mentioned. We're planning to have something between 10 and 20 students entering the program. We'll have 2 or 3 teachers, and all the teachers are active researchers, so people with PhDs in physics or astronomy and active in research currently. So you get a chance to see what research is like, and you get to meet people who are actually doing that research now. We have between 4 and 6 camp monitors. These are not always, but in a lot of cases, former students of the camp. So students who have been there, they know what kind of activities we do, they know the kind of difficulties the students might have. So they're there to enforce health and safety rules, but they're also there to help you and to make sure that you can learn as fast as you can. So as I said, for Portuguese students, the camp has no costs. So that funding is automatically secured by us. We have to apply for it and so on, but that's something we do. But we also have some international partnerships and some channels by which you may possibly get some funding, even if you are not in Portugal. So in particular, ESO offers a prize for a student from an ESO member country. That prize covers the costs of the camp itself. It doesn't cover travel to Porto, but it's at least part of the costs. Astronomiskt Ungdom in Sweden may fund one member. So there's no guarantee here. You're not treated differently if you come from Sweden and belong to this organization. But if you apply and you are offered a place, then Astronomiskt Ungdom can cover your expenses at the camp. And we have other informal arrangements in place with other foundations and other entities in other countries which may help you. And if that's relevant for you, we'll put you in touch with these people and try to make things easy for you. In addition to the activities I mentioned already, let me emphasize a couple of other interesting points. The kinds of courses that you'll have in the camp are partially decided by us, but partially decided by you. So at the moment, we have a call for researchers to propose courses that they will be willing to teach at the camp. We make a first selection of these courses, and then sometime in May, we contact students just before they are interviewed and ask you to rank the courses according to your preference. So you'll have a chance to say, I prefer to have this course rather than this other course, and so on. We try to follow your preferences. We need to have a balance between topics and various other things, but your opinion will be taken into consideration when we decide what courses you will actually have. It's possible that all the students will take the same 2 courses. It's possible that different students will take slightly different courses. So all of that is decided later on. I also want to emphasize that even though the the summer school or the camp happens in August, there will be some preparation that you need to do in July. So we'll send you some things to read. There's some things for you to study during the month of July. And it's important that you set aside some time to do this. This will not take you that long. It might take you maybe a week that you can spread over July according to your holiday schedule or school exam schedule or whatever. But it is important that you set aside some time for this, because if you don't, then you'll be at a big disadvantage when you come to the school in August as compared to the other students who did prepare in July. And as I said already, there will be some activities involving former students of the camp, including an alumni weekend and various other things. So we'll get a chance to meet them. And some of these alumni might be your mentors in the coming years. Okay, so in practice, what does the applications procedure look like? So you apply on the website, and the applications period is throughout the month of April. So it opens on the 1st of April, it closes on the 30th of April. I already mentioned the eligibility criteria. You must be in the antepenultimate year of pre-university education and studying, living, and having the nationality of one of the 45 countries you saw on the previous list. Most students are selected through the process I'm about to describe. There is one exception. Because of our partnership with the Apresentação municipality, there is always one student from the Apresentação secondary school who has a place in the camp. So that person is selected in a different way, but that person still needs to send an application and must fulfill all the other rules. And that application must be sent during the month of April, like everyone else. So all the rules apply to this student, except that student is not selected through the same process. In a sense, he is nominated by the school. Academic merit, potential, maturity are the selection criteria, as I already said. And the first stage of the application is for you to send this application in April. The second stage, if you get to that stage, is an interview, which is done in English, and it can be done in person, either in the Center of Astrophysics in Porto on Saturday, May 25, or in Lisbon at the Pavilion of Knowledge on Sunday, May 26, or it can be done via Zoom. So obviously, if you're not in Portugal, you'll be interviewed via Zoom. If you are in Portugal and live far away from Porto or Lisbon, you can also be interviewed via Zoom. If you live near Porto or Lisbon, it's probably easier for you to be interviewed in person. It's certainly less stressful to be interviewed in person than to be interviewed via Zoom. But we make a lot of effort to ensure that the process is fair and that you're not advantaged or disadvantaged because you're interviewed in person or via Zoom. So just because it's less stressful for you, I would say if you can be interviewed in person, you should aim to be interviewed in person. But if you cannot do that, not a problem. It will not affect your chances. What does the application consist of? So you have to fill an online form with your personal data, full name, date of birth, school, etc. The usual things. In addition, you need the following documents: a motivation letter written by you in English, explaining who you are, why you want to join the program, and so on. Then a letter of recommendation written by your current physics teacher, and I emphasize the 3 words, current physics teacher. Your latest school grade certificate. So in Portugal, this will be the certificate that you get just before your Easter holidays. In other countries, your latest certificate might be from a slightly different time. It might be from Carnival or something like that. In any case, it's the latest official document that you have from your school with your current grades. Optionally, you can provide certificates of participation in other relevant scientific activities, like Olympiads, science Olympiads, things like that. And most important, an authorization form from your parents, so a form signed by your parents authorizing you to participate, just because you're a minor, so your parents need to authorize you to participate. Initially, you send this form as a PDF scan, so you include it in the online application, but you also need to send this form, so the paper version of the form, the original form, by ordinary mail, and it must reach us at the Center of Astrophysics by May 15. I also want to emphasize here that, so all these documents are provided online, so you provide them yourself in your application form, with one exception, and that is the letter of recommendation from your teacher. So what you do in your application form is you provide the contact, so the email of the teacher who has agreed to write your letter. And at the moment when you submit the application, our database sends an automatic email to that teacher saying, this student has submitted an application and has nominated you as the person writing the letter. And this automatic email will explain to the teacher how to provide the letter, so how to write it and where to send it. There will be a separate online form which the student will use to upload the letter. And I want to emphasize that this deadline of April 30 also includes the letter. So the letter must arrive also by April 30th for your application to be complete and therefore valid. What happens afterwards? So let's assume you go to the interview, you do well. We use that information together with the rest of the application to decide which students offered places. You will receive, so if you are accepted, you will receive an offer of a place by email on or before the 1st of June. And you have basically 4 days to decide whether or not you accept the offer. So by the 5th of June, you have to reply to that email saying whether or not you accept the place. And by replying, I don't mean just saying yes. There will be some additional paperwork that you have to complete at that time, or that your parents will have to complete at that time. And it's important that you do it quickly. It's important that you do it by the 5th. If you don't reply, we will assume that you're not interested anymore, and we'll withdraw your offer and make the offer to someone else. There's a lot of bureaucracy to take care of, so we need to act quickly. Okay, so some other logistics points. All the students must stay at the place where the summer school is held throughout the 2 weeks. In no circumstances will we allow people to arrive 1 day later or to leave 1 day earlier. That is not possible for a whole range of reasons. So if you participate, you must commit for these 2 weeks. For students in Portugal, travel between your home and the meeting point, which I'll explain in a moment, can be covered by us if you do it in public transport. So if you travel by bus or by train, and you get those tickets with the tax number of the Center of Astrophysics, we can refund you those costs. If you prefer that your parents drive you to the meeting point, then obviously we cannot cover that expense. For foreign students, we cannot cover your flights to Porto, but we will cover the travel from Porto Airport to the meeting point. And if you arrive in Porto Airport, we'll have a camp teacher or camp monitor waiting for you when you arrive and accompanying you in the rest of the trip. As I said, for foreign students, we have some partial funding that we may use. If we don't have enough funding for all the foreign students, so in the worst case scenario, you'll be asked to pay expenses of up to 400 euro in addition to your travel expenses. And if that's the case, you or your parents need to pay them by June 30th. Now, I mentioned a meeting point. This meeting point is in the train and bus station of the town of Viana do Castelo. So the train and bus station are right next to each other. And all students must arrive at this meeting point before 4 p.m. on August the 4th. So whether you come by public transport or because your parents drive you there, or because you land in Porto Airport and then do the rest of the trip with us, you must be in the meeting point by this time. And then on the trip back, you will be back at this meeting point around 12 noon on August 18th. And then from there, you can take public transport home, or your parents can pick you up, or we can accompany you back to Porto Airport and then you fly back home. As I said, for people landing or departing from Porto Airport, monitors or teachers will accompany you between the meeting point and the airport. Now, as I said, if you are offered a place, that offer will come by email. Also, if you're invited for interview, that invitation will come by email. And the email sending those messages is the one you see at the bottom of the slide. So astrocamp@astro.up.pt. Occasionally, people say that some of these messages end up in their spam folder. It doesn't happen very often, but it happened in 3 or 4 cases. So you may want to ensure that this email is in your safe emails list, so to minimize the risk that you miss these messages just because they end up in spam folder. So what should you expect from these 2 weeks? Well, first of all, 2 weeks with no internet and no mobile phones. We want to isolate you from the world deliberately so we can focus on learning, so we can teach you as much as we think you can handle. So no internet, no mobile phones, no personal gadgets, just physics and astronomy. You'll have 21 hours of classes and 4 hours of written exams per week. You should expect to work much harder and to learn much more than at school. As I said, we'll know you by then. So we think we can estimate how much we can teach you, and we'll try to make the most of those 2 weeks by teaching you as much as we think we can reasonably do. So you have to be prepared to work hard, a lot more than you do at school. So in a sense, this will be an indication of what university level lectures will be like. So it's some training for you. On the other hand, we'll give you a calm setting, in the mountains, away from light pollution, away from stresses of everyday life, of having to commute from home to school and vice versa. So these are more or less ideal conditions in which you can learn the things you like. So we have courses on your favorite physics and astronomy topics, and you'll be involved in the choice of these courses. And you'll get to meet other students and monitors and teachers which have a similar passion for science as you do. So essentially, this is a place for you to learn how science is actually done. What you learn in school is not what real science looks like these days. Real science research is very, very different. You'll get really exposed to it in university, but you can start getting exposed to it in these 2 weeks. And these 2 weeks can also be a stepping stone for you. They can be a first step for you to learn even more in the subsequent 2 years if you do well enough in these 2 weeks. I'm almost finished, but I want to spend a few minutes giving some advice to the teachers writing the recommendation letters and also to you, the students, applying to the program. So first, for the teachers, the April 30 deadline applies to you as well. I already mentioned this. Now, we are reasonable people, and if the student sends the application 10 minutes before the deadline, we're not going to give you 9 minutes to read the email and write the letter. But at most, we'll give you 24 hours if the application is sent right at the edge of the deadline. but not more than that. And this only applies for applications arriving at the very end. The application arrives in the middle of April. The April 30 deadline is completely strict. And if the letter doesn't arrive by then the application is incomplete and will not locate. So that's the first point. The second point is, when you receive this email informing you that the student has submitted an application and nominated you, you will receive some instructions from us, some suggestions for how to write the letter. So even if you have drafted the letter already, please read those instructions and change the letter if necessary. Our experience is that some teachers write very useful letters. Some teachers write letters which are basically useless and which might even harm the students. So please read our instructions. It might take you 10 or 20 minutes to change the letter, but you might be significantly helping the student. Another important point is the only way for you to send the letter is to upload it in the link that you received in that email. There is no other method of sending the letter that is valid. So if somehow you decide to send the letter directly to us by replying to that email, this is not valid and excludes the application. The only way to send the letter is to upload it on the website whose link you'll receive in that email. Okay, so about the letter, you can write it in Portuguese or in English. If you're not sufficiently fluent in Portuguese or English, you can exceptionally ask, so first write the letter in another language, and then ask someone, maybe an English teacher, to translate that letter into English. Now, if you do that, you should mention in the letter that this is being done. You should start by saying, I'm writing this letter on behalf of the student, and I first written it in the mother language, and I asked this person to translate it. This is fine as long as you state it, but you should not give the letter for the candidate to translate. You should not do that. All information on the letter is treated confidentially, and because of that, and also to help the student, you should be honest and specific in the letter. You should be aware of the fact that if you write a vague or generic letter, this will negatively impact the student's chances of success. Also, if you exaggerate the student's qualities, you're probably harming the student, because it's very easy to spot bullshit. And remember that we will be interviewing the student, so we can check whether the things you say are accurate or not. Now, occasionally, teachers write letters for more than one student. You might have 2 or 3 students in your class. All of them want to apply, and all of them ask you to write letters for them. Now, in principle, that is perfectly fine. You can write letters for as many students as you want. Just be aware that the letters must be specific, and therefore they must be different for different students. If you write letters that are almost identical for more than one student, where you basically just change the name of the student in the 2 letters, but the content is the same, this happened in the past, this will automatically exclude the candidates concerned. So don't do that. If more than one student asks you to write letters, do it, support them, but make sure you take the time to write individual letters that help each of the students separately. Okay, that's about the teachers. How about the candidates? Here's some advice that comes from the experience of previous editions. So first of all, once you've asked your teacher to write you a letter, make sure the teacher watches this video and understands what program you're applying to, what is the structure of the program, what is expected from the teacher, so in particular what I said in the previous slide and so on. So make sure your teacher takes the time to watch this video, and obviously make sure that you understand what you're applying for and how you have to do it and how and when and so on. It should be clear from what I said previously that the summer school in August is not a 2-week holiday. And I can tell you that those who treat this this school as holiday, end up disappointed, unavoidably. Next, start preparing your application well in advance. Now, it may be that you only find out about this a couple of days before the deadline, and then obviously you have to rush. That's life. But if you know about the program well in advance, start preparing well in advance. The April 30 deadline to submit the applications is 100% strict. There is no exceptions. If your application arrives late, we'll not look at it. Then a lot of people ask us about grades. Obviously, grades are relevant, especially in the first stage where we don't know you, so we have to trust a number of things like grades your school provides, but grades are not everything. To think of the Portuguese example, where the grading system is from 0 to 20, we had students with an average grade of 14 being selected to the camp, and students with an average grade of 20 not being selected to the camp. So grades are relevant, but they're not everything. If you think this program is the kind of thing you'd like to do, and if you're willing to commit to it for possibly 30 months, but at least 2 weeks just to see how things go, then you should apply. And don't be intimidated because the student next to you in the classroom has slightly better grades than you. If you think this is a program for you, then you apply and let us worry about the next steps. Regarding the motivation letter is just that. It's a letter explaining your motivation to join the program. It's not a place for creative writing. It's not a place for an essay. It's a letter. So just write what you think is relevant, explain who you are, explain your reasons. There's no recommended maximum size or minimum size. Just write what you feel you should write. Again, be honest and specific. Don't write vague things that could apply to anyone. And you're obviously responsible for everything you say in the application. If you say you can do something in the application, we might ask you about it in the interview. If you say that you're very familiar with programming in Python, and we find out in the interview that you only know the very basics, but you're not really fluent in it, then obviously that will not look good. So be honest, don't exaggerate, talk about your strengths and weaknesses if you want, but you're responsible for whatever you say in the application. I mentioned earlier that there's a box in the application where you can upload additional documents and certificates, like certificates of participation in science Olympiads and things like that. And I emphasize that these documents are optional. Maybe you have nothing to provide just because you found that you have an interest in physics and astronomy just very recently, or because you live in a small town and you don't have opportunities to do those things. That's perfectly fine. If you do have such certificates to send, make sure that they are relevant. You don't need to send certificates for everything you did since kindergarten. So if you send us 100 pages of documents, that will just, so first, we'll have a lot more things to read, and it doesn't make our life easy and probably will annoy us a little bit. But second, it also shows that you don't know which of these 100 pages are really relevant and which ones are not relevant. And therefore, it probably shows that you're not mature enough. So whatever you decide to choose, try to think whether or not it's relevant. And if you're in doubt about any of the things that relate to the application, feel free to contact us ahead of the deadline, and we'll try and sort it out for you. So just to finish, here's a timeline of the process. So the applications are throughout the month of April. They're done on the website. So you see the website at the bottom. And if you're seeing this video, presumably you already know what the website is anyway. In the beginning of May, we'll look through all the applications. We'll select people for the interviews. And if you are to be interviewed, you will receive by email an invitation by the 15th of May. If you do not receive anything by the 15th of May, this simply means you're not selected for interviews. We don't have the resources to reply to everyone and say you've not been selected. So we just contact the people who have been selected for the interview. And so this will happen by May 15th. The interviews will be done on May 25th and 26th. If they are in person in Porto, they have to be on the 25th. If they are in person in Lisbon, they have to be on the 26th. The ones done by Zoom can be on either day. So when we contact you, we'll propose a day and a time. If you are in Portugal, we'll originally propose that you come to Porto or to Lisbon, depending on where you're in the north or south part of Portugal. But if you are in Portugal and are too far from Porto or Lisbon, you can always say, I cannot be there in person, I prefer to be interviewed by Zoom. That's perfectly fine. And for the foreign candidates or for candidates in the Azores or Madeira Islands, obviously the interviews will be done by Zoom. By the 1st of June, places will be offered, again by email. By the 5th of June, you'll have to confirm that you accept the place, and you and your parents will have to complete the relevant paperwork. If there's any payments to be done, they have to be done by June 30th. Now, when we offer you the places, if you want to ask local sources, maybe your school, your municipality, someone else for funds, so at that stage, we'll be happy to provide the letter saying that you've been offered a place and there's these expenses at the school that you need to cover, and that might help you find some of this funding. But in any case, whether it's you making the payments or whether it's some other funding source that you find, these payments need to be made by the end of June. The school this year will be from the 4th to the 18th of August, as I said. After the school, so you'll find out your school exams on the last day of the school. Possibly we'll think a little bit more about whether or not you should stay in the program. We'll discuss this with you, maybe with your parents as well. We'll discuss it among ourselves, the teachers and monitors. And eventually, that is the case, we'll offer you to continue in the program. And you and your parents have to decide whether or not you want to continue. And if you want to continue, you need to confirm it. Parents need to confirm it by the end of September. And again, by confirmation, it's not just replying saying yes, there'll be some additional paperwork to be done. And so that's all I had to say. So at the bottom of the slide, you again see the website for the program. And if you have any questions about the program or the application's procedure or the eligibility criteria or whatever it is, you're very welcome to contact the email that you see on the slide right now. So this email will be checked frequently starting now, and during the applications period, it will be checked every day, maybe more than once a day. So as soon as we receive a question, we'll try and clarify it and answer it for you as on a very short time scale. And we'll do our best to help you prepare a good application. So that's all I had to say. If you think this is the program for you, then again, I encourage you to apply. Good luck with the application, and I hope to see you in the interviews and then later on at the school itself in August.